Hello MUS 2020 students. This is the first in a series of videos on what's frankly my favorite topic, audio effects. I've broken this down into 4 sections covering time-based effects, timbre effects, dynamic effects, and studio utility effects. Throughout the videos, I'm going to use the same sound. This is a Sawtooth sound from Analog, which, yes, I know it's only available in Ableton Suite, but it's a very neutral sound that's very obvious when something changes. That will just help you to really hear the sound that all of these effects can produce. So let's get started with time-based effects. Time-based effects all use delays of some sort to play copies of the past incoming audio signal mixed with present incoming audio. These delay times can be on the macro level, like bars and beats, or on the micro level of milliseconds. And this change in timescale will have a huge effect on the resulting sound. So here is what the sound of a Sawtooth wave is, just to get the sound in your head. Now, let's take a look at our first device, beat repeat. If I'm going to use beat repeat, I do need to make sure that Ableton is actually playing, so I'm going to go ahead and hit play. Beat repeat works by adding synced repeats at an interval that I set with the interval knob. Currently it's set to 1 bar. This point can further be shifted by using the offset knob. Each slice is then repeated, but the grid knob can make the slices larger or smaller and make them fluctuate with the variations knob. But let's hear it right now at its default. If I change the interval, they will repeat much, much more. Add some variations, and there we go. Offset. It's a lot of fun to play with. Chance is going to set the percentage that a repeat will occur, while pitch and pitch delay will allow you to change the pitch of the output signal. Finally, we have gate as well. Gate is going to allow you to do some really interesting things with defining the total length of all repetitions in terms of the number of 16th notes. So, for example, if we set it to a more normal 4 16s, we get 4 repetitions. If I increase that, in this case, I get 15 repetitions. Also, I have the ability to use the mix, ins, or insert mode, and gate mode. Mix blends the input signal with the repetitions. Insert will mute the original signal when repetitions play. And gate only passes the repetitions. Which can be pretty cool if you want to use it for effects. Next up is delay. Delay is a stereo delay line. I can control the left and the right side and get delays. If I unlink them by clicking on this chain between them, I can set them to different delay times. Furthermore, if I take off sync and set them to time, I can set them in specific millisecond amounts. Which can be very useful if you want to use them for, say, fattening a sound, and you want it set really low, like in the 2 to 4 millisecond range. But we'll go back to there. Then I have feedback, which sets the amount of each channel's output that goes back into the delay line. So this is proportional. So think of it as scaling the volume down by 50%. But if I increase that, it gets louder. Kind of cool. I can also set it to infinite, which will freeze any delay that's currently in the buffer of the delay unit at the time. So here's a little bit of audio. And it just continues cycling endlessly until I turn off the freeze with the infinite button. That's very, very cool. It's very, very useful if you're playing around and you have like a really cool pad sound and you want to just have it hang out there in time. With the modes, I have repitch, fade, and jump. These can be a little bit of a weird thing to talk about, but basically, repitch will cause things to jump when the time is changed. So let me show you what I mean by that. Fade will fade between the previous delay time and the new delay time. I'm just going to link them together for this. And finally, jump will just flat out jump from the previous delay time to the new one. It can be useful. Depending on what you're doing, you might need to play around with those. The other thing you have under here that's very cool, especially if it's unlinked, is ping pong delay. What this does is it makes the signal jump from the left to the right speaker as you hear it. That is such a fun sound. I really like that. But let's move on to probably my favorite device in live intro, grain delay. This works by granulating the incoming signal, which splits it into chunks that are smaller than 20 milliseconds. This is the micro time scale. And then those chunks are processed. You have an XY controller here in the form of a grid, and you can set a parameter here on the Y-axis. It's currently set to frequency. And on the X-axis, which is currently set to pitch. And then you can grab the dot and move it around. My time seems to be a little much. Let's take the dry wet down so you can hear both parts. I'm just going to set that to 50%. I can do things like add some spray to it. Feedback. And there's quite a bit more as well. One thing to keep in mind is that this whole idea of sample granulation is a really, really big topic. We do not have time to cover it in this class, If you really want to, you can set up a time to meet with me and we'll talk about it. And if not, you can always read Curtis Rhodes' book, Microsound, which is kind of the book on granulation and microsound. Let's take a look at the looper next. This is your classic guitar loop pedal. You set how long it will record in the record box. So let's do 2 bars. Then what you're going to do is you're going to hit record. Then after you hit record, it will change to the option to overdub or play based on what it's currently doing. So record is the circle, overdub is the plus, play is the triangle, and stop, obviously, is the stop button. This is another device that has to have live playing when you're using it. Otherwise, it will not work. So it's pretty useful. Again, it has to be playing in the transport up at the top or it won't actually work. But select the mode that you want up here, record, overdub, play, or stop, and it will go through those. You can also say what you want it to do with the record. So I have record for 2 bars, then overdub. I could go to play. I could also change the speed once it's recorded, and I can even reverse what it's recorded. So very fun. The final time-based effect that we're going to talk about is really kind of the big one. That is reverb. So what can I say? Reverb is reverberations. And we can change the time very, very easily by taking the decay time up. And it just keeps going and going and going. The way that this works is that you have a bunch of decays and delays that are all operating at once, and it just kind of feeds back everything at a lower and lower rate through longer and longer delays. With this, you can take it all the way from decay time of nearly instantaneously to a minute. Which I'm not going to play for you because that would take a while. With this, the decay knob is going to control how long it goes. Density will move between thin and thick echoes. Scale controls if the echoes are lighter or darker. Then you also have other things like the diffuse, the reflect, and the pre-delay, which can be used to further shape the reverb. Then, of course, there's the all-important dry-wet. Because there's so many options on this, and we just don't have time to go over all of them in class, I recommend that you start with a preset, which you can find up here. They've got halls, they have others, they have rooms, they have special types of reverb, so things like an oil barrel. Well, let's hot swap that in. That's kind of cool. It sounds kind of like a harpsichord almost. But I recommend starting with one of those presets and then tweaking. And remember that the dry wet in particular is going to be the big thing to play with here, because that will really correspond to how much reverb is applied to the signal before it's bounced back to the device.